Good morning, everyone. This, I was born and raised in Newark, Ohio, 30 miles on the other side of Columbus, but so often it seems like my wheels actually, when I leave the Columbus airport, come to Dayton. I'm trying to remember the number of times Steve has had me here in Dayton. As I look around this room, it appears that about at least a good 30 or 40% of the folks in this room are either alums of Dayton Citywide, the City of Dayton, the Dayton Development Coalition, Bruce with his research park. So it's great to see many friends. I've spoken at a couple citywide events before. Paul led a strategic planning effort many years ago. I believe you were leading it, Paul, and spoke to that. So it's always fun to return here, and Steve's always a great host when we get the opportunity. My presentation this morning is I'm literally going to talk about what has gone on in kind of the national economy with selected cluster or employment sectors. As many of you know, I head up a group called the International Economic Development Council. Steve is a past chair, a past board member. Jerry Brunswick, who I did see at some point, is a past board member of ours as well. And many of you have been or are members today of that organization. One of the interesting things of Ohio note is our annual conference is in Ohio, and it actually, for all practical purposes, started yesterday. We had about 60 people taking a workforce course at the Hyatt Regency Convention Center. More people are going to be coming in today. We're having our certification exams over the weekend, and we are being kicked off by Mayor Coleman of the City of Columbus and the President of the National League of Cities at 2 o'clock on Sunday, where we're expecting nearly 1,400 people at the convention center and the Hyatt Regency. We have about 4,400 members. Paul serves also on our board of directors and is on our leadership of the organization. We'll have 9 countries represented in Columbus. So let me talk a little bit about sectors of the future. Now, part of it is dealing with this, the misery that we've been experiencing over the last nearly 3 years. The snapshot of the national unemployment is that we've over 8.2 million jobs have been lost since December of 2007. Nearly 15 million people are looking for work. Some of the major sectors, needless to say, with the construction jobs, we've lost nearly 1.6 million, and until we figure out how to use up that supply, and there clearly was oversupply in some places, particularly in the South, Las Vegas, San Diego, Miami, Phoenix are some of the places with the highest vacancy rates, the highest numbers of foreclosures. Until that gets absorbed, many of those construction jobs will not be realized. I've described this recession as a double whammy. We had the financial markets meltdown on the one side, subprime lending, whatever you want to say, that caused it, but we also lost 2.1 million manufacturing jobs to mostly China. And if you look at the next statistics, we have 2.2 million manufacturing jobs lost. So are those in direct correlation? Probably not direct, but there's certainly a strong indirect correlation between what was going on with the outsourcing of jobs, offshoring, whatever you want to call it, and that 2.2 million. Our retail industry has taken quite a bath. A number of national retailers no longer exist. We saw another major bankruptcy filing yesterday with Blockbuster announcing, and that was frankly a situation that technology actually eclipsed it. Who knew what Netflix would do to a company like Blockbuster, and online video streaming may hit Netflix in the same way that that Blockbuster was hit by Netflix. We've lost 500,000 jobs in the financial sector. That hit New York. Charlotte, it was a heavy casualty with the Wells Fargo taking over Wachovia, and we've seen a number of major layoffs in that area. We've had nearly 750,000 people who have stopped looking for work, and many of the jobs that I'm talking about, we may never recover. Some of those jobs, we're not going to get back onto these shores. We're losing some jobs in the manufacturing. Our manufacturers in some cases are doing fine. They've just increased efficiency, and they've jettisoned labor for increased tooling that is more computer-aided, and those jobs may never return. So let me do some quick comparisons. Jobs of the past, jobs of the future. Clearly, we've lost a fair amount of jobs in the auto sector. And actually, it wasn't all that long ago, within the last 8 to 12 weeks, that the auto sector is actually one of the fastest growing sectors. GM, Ford, and Chrysler downsized so much, and the market demand was so little that we're actually starting to see some bump in auto jobs around the country. Construction and banking are the places that have been hard hit. Places that we're going to experience growth. With the baby boom generation, which I am a trailing edge of that generation, it's going to require a lot more health care. We're also continuing to grow as a population base, so there will be a demand for more health care jobs. We're seeing a demand for more engineering jobs, and we're seeing demand for more energy jobs. And I'm sure Paul will probably talk a little bit about what's going on in Silicon Valley in terms of what they're doing in the engineering space. Sectors with job growth today: healthcare, information technology, utilities. The average poll worker who climbs up and down poles, and we still need them in both telecommunications and in electricity, is approximately my age. They're 48 to 55 years old. They're going to be retiring, and they're going to be retiring in huge numbers. Those guys are going to need to be replaced, because we're going to still need, in order to keep our utility systems working, people on those poles. We are going to experience some growth in financial services, and frankly, we're going to see additional growth in public transportation. While we're seeing some hollowing out in government services right now, the anticipation is that some of that will come back. In healthcare specifically, between 2007 and 2009, we saw a growth of nearly 750,000 jobs. As more physicians enter the workplace, a physician requires 4.5 support staff for every physician, and that ranges from nurses, nurse practitioners, nurses' aides, to billing clerks, receptionists. It is not all administrative staff. As I indicated already, we're going to require more people in healthcare generally. Technology. 1 million new technology-related jobs will be created over the next 4 to 5 years. Database administration is apparently a very hot field, and some of that will be the intermingling of healthcare and information data. Financial services, there will be a expected growth of 22% over the next decade. I talked about public transportation. I also talked about the utilities, the higher retirement rate. Paul will talk about alternative fuels and greening of the economy. Projections of 4.2 million new green jobs. And we can ask, the interesting question we can talk about in the Q&A is what actually is a green job, because that is open to debate as we talk about it. So what do you need to do in order to respond to this? Those are questions that Carol and Paul will talk in terms of their sectors. But one of the key issues for the economic development world is working with our local businesses, figuring out how to work with our community colleges and our workforce sector to make sure that we are training people for those particular sectors where we need to be thinking about for the future. So that is my kickoff presentation, and I'm sure Carol and Paul will take it from there. And thank you very much for having me here this morning.